What's happening, everybody, and welcome to this new episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. I'll be your host again today, John. Stephen's still not ready to come back to us yet, so hopefully he'll be with us for Thursday's episode. But today I'm joined by other show regulars, Anthony Dunn and Francis Carty. How are you doing, boys?
All right, mate. Good to talk to you. It's been a couple of weeks. Been enjoying my annual leave, so good to be back on.
That's right, Anthony. I'm sure you have a lot to say as well. What about yourself, Franny? You all right, mate?
Aye, I'm all good. I feel like I've been on this a lot now because of folks' holidays. So
You're never off it, son.
I know.
You're never off it.
When's the paycheck coming in?
Aye, well, if you find out, tell me. But obviously, let's just kick things off and just jump head first into the deep end. As we all know, Saturday was the start of the SPFL season. We were away at Hearts. A game I think we were all confident we'd probably come away with 3 points. For the statisticians out there, that's the first time we've actually lost an opening game since 1997. So it just shows you that how far we've fallen, I guess. Although in saying that, and I will stress this, that game in 1997 versus Hibs was also the debut game of a certain Henrik Larsson, and we all know what happened that season. So I'm pretty sure we're no stressing at this point about the season ahead. But just coming to yourself first, Anthony. Since it's been a while since you've been on talking to us, and you're probably choking to get a few words in. So I'll come to you first, mate. Just looking back to the game against Saturday, I'm assuming you obviously watched the game. What's your overall thoughts?
I did, John. I did see the game. Yeah. Like you say, a new season, but sadly, it seems to be for the moment anyway. Pretty much the same old story. I thought. Again, you can't really argue with too much with what the manager said at the end of the match. I thought in spells we looked decent without any end product at the end. And of course, we might come on to it, but it was, and I'm sure it won't be the first time we say it this season, an absolutely shambolic refereeing performance. But taking all that into consideration, we had enough on that park on Saturday night to get a result against a team that's just come up for the first division. But we had no end product up top, and individual errors once again proved very costly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the key things you mentioned there was the end product, and I think that's what hurt us in the majority of last season as well. You got a forward line talent like Edward in your team, and he just doesn't look interested, or he's just not playing the game for whatever reason. He's just not firing, and that's obviously hurting us because we need that clinical sort of finishing in the final third, and it just seems like at the minute we've not got that. But obviously, moving forward, things in that may change. I think we've seen elements of that game as well with the style and just sort of looking for that sort of high press, maintaining possession, and for large portions of the game, we did control it. I thought possession-wise, we were in control. We kept them deep in their own half. I think something we're going to need to get used to this season is 11 men behind the ball and try to break that down, which is going to be the biggest issue that we face. And that's something obviously Andrew's going to need to overcome, because I can't see many teams sort of competing with us and pressing us the way we did, catching us on the break. Absolutely, and that's something we need to be wary of. But for me, it is a game we should have won comfortably, and if we had a clinical finisher up front, I think that's something that we would have done. But what about yourself, Francis? You watched the game as well. What's your thoughts on Saturday's performance, and where do you think that leaves us?
It was pretty much deja vu last season, wasn't it? Like, I take a quick wee note down. We had like 74% possession, 19 shots, 7 on target, but apart from the goal, I can't really remember. Well, and obviously Craig Gordon makes 2 great saves at the end, but I can't really remember ones where it was really Gordon had to pull off worldies, obviously apart from the one for James Forrest and then Starfelt. But yeah, it was like Anthony said, we did dominate in spells without really doing anything in the final third. A lot of that could be blamed on Edward, where he's not making the same runs, nothing sticking to him and stuff. So it's that doesn't help the cutting edge. I thought Starfelt was a bit. He's got to be blamed for the first goal, and then the defending for the second goal. There's 3 guys ahead of the ball. They're marking nobody. I don't understand that. I don't know if that's down to the coaching. So maybe the manager Postecoglou and the coaching's got to maybe take a wee bit of flack there. But that seems more like it could like somebody like Strachan or Kennedy or somebody in the coaching staff, because they were the kind of goals we were conceding last season. So maybe that isn't Angie's fault, but right, same sense, he's the manager, so he's got to take some of the flack for it. He's got to be questioned why he put Beaton again at centre half, because by all accounts he let us down the last time he played there. So I never understood that decision, but he'll not. It's not something I'll totally worry about. It was not a great start. It was not ideal, because obviously we know we want to get off to a flyer as best you can any campaign, but obviously with the new manager, the new regime, if you like, in that, but it wasn't good. But I mean, Ralston's goal was brilliant. Maybe we should try him up front, because it was an absolute cracking wee 1-2 and a wee drop of the shoulder to create the space and score a goal. So it was a really good finish by him. But all in all, it was just almost a carbon copy of plenty of games last season.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But yeah, I would just, while we're on the subject, we shout out to Ralston, because I don't think any of us thought they had that in his arsenal. That was, like you says, it was. He took his men well. He played the ball. He threw it into the box. He struck it well. By all accounts, he took it and hit it like a striker would naturally. So, for a right back who gets a lot of pelters, even on here, fair play to him. But no, I mean, one of the things I want to touch on that you mentioned there that I also think is perfectly valid and another great point is the goal that we conceded for their free kick. Something that we've seen happen regularly last season, conceding goals for set pieces. And it was the same old story. We just couldn't defend in the box. Guys were only jumping for balls. They were giving guys too much space. And for whatever the reason, that still happened that game. Now, it could be a case of old habits die hard, and that's still something that need to get drilled out of them. But like you mentioned, that has to fall on somebody. Somebody's obviously this is something that we need to be practicing and training as well. I know the focus is on obviously the high press and the attacking football, the sort of movement and the passing, but we need to focus on defending set pieces, because it's clearly something that we've still no got to grips with. And it's something that's cost us oil last season and cost us again on Saturday night. Anthony, did you see, just quickly as well, the Beaton starting, like Francis mentioned there, Beaton starting, the first goal, obviously Starfelt got turned early and brought the guy into the box, but he managed to catch up. He made what was, by all accounts, a pretty brave attempt at challenging when he kind of lunged his foot around the guy, knocked it in front of Beaton, who just kind of toe poked it out to Mackay-Steven, and ultimately set him up for that first goal. Did you see anything in that first goal or the second goal where you think that it's something that could easily be weeded out, or was that just? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it just seems to be. I don't know if it's a mental thing at the moment, John, but every time the attacking team or the opponent gets into our area, it just seems complete and utter panic stations. The minute Starfelt got turned, you were waiting on the ball going in the net. That's the way it's sort of been feeling recently. It's any time, even when going back to the game at Ibrox last season, the final league game, even although we went up the park and equalised, you kind of had that feeling that within a few minutes it was going to be back to we'd be conceding again. It's just, you've got no confidence in that back line at all. As I say, like you say, Starfelt, it didn't start the game overly well. It's his first game.
Yeah,
he's playing alongside a guy who's not a centre half. Just end of story. And got turned very easily for it. But like you say, there was several opportunities after that to clear the ball and clear the lines, and we failed to do so. Like you say, and for the second goal as well, it's just, again, the same problems happening time and time again. A defence that is just not properly set up. It's amateur hour stuff, man. It's stuff that you do at school, learning how to properly defend a set piece. But again, also as well, my favourite subject, but we have to keep coming back to it again. We've now played 3 games in this competitively since the start of this season, and both goalkeepers have played massive parts in both of those. Well, obviously it's a 2-legged affair, the European tie, but they have played massive parts in us, failing to win both games. Barkas has cost us in Europe, and on Saturday night, Scott Bain, I don't know, Scott Bain was nearly at Murrayfield. That's how out of position he was. And I don't know what he was doing. And then 90 seconds later, you've seen the difference of having a proper goalkeeper between the sticks. That's what a goalkeeper should be doing, pulling off saves that he's not really entitled to make at big moments in the game. That could have saved us a point, and we're maybe having a slightly different chat tonight. But it is now reaching, it's not even a crisis anymore, it's an absolute emergency. We have to stop this charade. The longer these guys are in goals, any one of the two, we will fall further and further behind. And I reckon you could potentially even say goodbye to the Europa League as well. It's that critical. I accept they're not solely to blame. The defence, I've got a lot of questions they need to answer as well. But we simply cannot go forward with any of these two guys in goals. If Joe Hart, if this seems to be the rumour that is doing the rounds, then fair play. I appreciate that Joe Hart's not exactly, set the world alight the last couple of years, but I would honestly take anyone at this point, because these guys will not do. They won't do.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and I think that the goalkeeping issue is something we're all seriously concerned about as fans. Because, like you say, none of the Barkas nor Bain are the guys to take us forward. They just don't. I have absolutely no faith or confidence in either of them. But just touching on the Joe Hart thing seems to be sort of picking up a little bit more pace again. And I know that there's people kind of sitting, they're kind of on the fence, or they're just dead against it. But like you mentioned there, he's not set any sort of leagues alight lately with his performances and stuff like that. But let's look back. Forster, when we brought him in, wasn't playing either. We didn't know anything about him. Turned out to be a fantastic signing for us. Craig Gordon, by all accounts, you thought was at the latter end of his career, wasn't lighting up anywhere. Came in and had a fantastic, sort of revitalised his career at Celtic, so to speak. So, I mean, for me, Joe Hart's far too experienced and far too good a goalkeeper. We know historically what he's capable of, for it to be sort of shoved to the side or ignored. And I think that having that kind of experience would give the guys in front of them confidence as well, which I think that they're completely lacking, because I don't think the likes of Bain or Barkas has any faith in the guys in front of him, and they don't have faith in the goalkeeper. And that just, for me, is just a recipe for disaster as far as I'm concerned. Franny, just what's your thoughts on the goalkeeping situation then? And let's just touch on the Joe Hart thing for a minute, right? Just taking into account like what Anthony said there about the situation with our goalkeepers. And again, Joe Hart hasn't been lighting up anywhere recently, and people think he's over the hill. But like I said, we thought that about Craig Gordon, a career plagued with injuries, latter end of his career, and we're seeing him now. Even in the game on Saturday, he's still capable of pulling out the big saves. So, where do you stand on the goalkeeping situation and the whole Joe Hart rumour?
I mean, I know along with Stephen, I've been an advocate of Barkas, but obviously on recent podcasts, I have said my stop's coming soon. And I remember a comment I made early doors in this podcast. It was, we had 3 number 3s, and I still, ever more, it seems more relevant that we have got 3 number 3s. It's I'm like Anthony, but I'm probably more in favour of Joe Hart. Maybe Anthony, I may be reading Anthony wrong, but Joe Hart's got 70 odd caps for England. I appreciate none of them have been for a wee while, but the guy's still only 34, which is a decent. It's not old for a goalkeeper. He was very successful at Manchester City. He's well thought of at Manchester City. Obviously, Pep Guardiola wants to play a certain way. Keepers are a wee bit different for players where you can maybe coach it. You can't really coach a keeper to start playing with his feet and that and pinging 30, 40 yard passes like over the top to sort of split a defence, if you like. So it just wasn't Joe Hart's game, but it doesn't make him a bad goalkeeper. And like, as much as I understand Postecoglou wants to play a certain way, and Joe Hart maybe isn't the keeper to do that. I'm with Anthony and Ross and yourself that I just want the keeper to stop the goals, ball going in the net. Anything I can do after that is a bonus. Is a bonus for me.
I mean, that's ultimately that's his primary job.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I totally like. I would take Joe Hart in a heartbeat if that's a possibility. Like, he done okay at Torino, never done brilliant. Done okay, never really worked out for him at Burnley. I can't remember if he went elsewhere. But then, I know he was never going to be number one at Spurs. But there's a reason Jose Mourinho wanted him at Spurs. Jose Mourinho doesn't sign you when you're a bad player. You maybe not got to feature a lot, but he obviously trusts. He wants you in for a reason, so it can't be all that bad if Jose Mourinho wanted him last season. And just to touch on your Craig Gordon one as well, it's like Craig Gordon was, the media had him retired. He hadn't played for about 18 months, I think, when he came to Celtic, and then he was all but retired. He was on Sportscene every week, so it just
that's what I'm saying. I mean, exactly. For by all accounts, he was done. He was finished. He had injuries. He had problems with his legs. Injuries he's plagued his career, all this potential, and he ultimately didn't really live up to it. And then he came back to Celtic, and he was phenomenal for us. We're asking, why did we ever let him go? And then you seen the saves he was making on Saturday. When needed, he was there, and he shows he still got it. So that's why I think that the argument against Hart being over the hill or past his best doesn't count here, because
I must admit, just to interrupt, sorry John, it was just to say I'm totally with you guys on this. I personally would have Joe Hart in an absolute heartbeat. I was just merely sort of putting forward what some of the other you might hear in the stands for other supporters that don't want one. But the points you make there about, you know, at City when Pep Guardiola came in, it's actually very similar to, funnily enough, Craig Gordon himself when Brendan came in. It was the same summer. Brendan was very headstrong and he wanted his keeper to pass the ball out and this, that and the other. Realised that wasn't Craig Gordon's main strength. Quickly brought in Doris de Vries thinking that was the answer to the problems, and then realised that Doris de Vries couldn't do a goalkeeper's primary job, which was keeping the ball out of the net. So, very quickly says, well, we can teach Craig Gordon how to pass a ball, but he doesn't need coaching on how to, more often than not, keep the ball out the net. He maybe wasn't quite the grade of a Fraser Forster or an Artur Boric, but I would say at least domestically, I can't really remember too many, even in the derbies, I can't really recall the big man really making that. I remember there was a day at St Johnstone, we ended up drawing the game. It was just the start of Brendan's second season. He made a mistake for trying to kick the ball out, and he fluffed his lines, and St Johnstone scored from it. But apart from that, I can't really remember too many really bad ones.
I think he had a wee spell, but it was over like sort of for 4 weeks, because I can remember 2 occasions, one in Europe where he just came rushing out and wiped the ball out, but it was just...
In Europe, he definitely had a few clangers in Europe, and that's maybe where I used to always sort of say he's not quite the top notch, but certainly domestically, Franco, he's
more
I would have him. I couldn't believe that there was not some sort of arrangement signed up one way or another, that, because you can understand him, he's still got the ability to play at the top level. Why we didn't have either Forster set in stone or Gordon being told that he wasn't going anywhere. And like we said on Saturday night, that decisions came back to haunt us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is something that Celtic have been very good at as of late, and this is letting folk go. Craig Gordon, Johnny Hayes, I've just drew a blank, but I know that there's other guys.
Season campaigners what have just kind of let go that
could have be, especially last season.
Maybe just played 15 games. Obviously different for a goalkeeper. Maybe played 15 games a season. The type of players that you need, but you're getting a 7 out of 10 out of them.
Exactly. But again, we're quite happy to let these guys go, bringing in the new inexperienced guys, and it just no working. And that's kind of poor man management to me. They're obviously, I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but for whatever reason, that's the kind of decisions that the Celtic board, etc., are making. So, I mean, obviously we've touched on some certain areas of the game, but Anthony, earlier you made a fantastic point about the poor refereeing, and this is something that I think as fans would all agree, was quite rife last year as well. And it's not something I particularly like getting into. But I mean, by all accounts, the couple of decisions last night were pretty terrible. Celtic's scoring a goal that they said was offside, it wasn't. And a potential issue with Halliday calls for a red card. What was your thoughts on them? Because these kind of incidents and these flashpoints can turn games on their head. And again, it's decisions that have went against us, despite the fact that, by all accounts, they probably shouldn't have.
Well, if Andy Halliday is not brought up in front of the presiding officer, then the presiding officer and the panel aren't doing their job, quite frankly. But if justice is done retrospectively, John, that'll be the 5th time in the last few seasons that Bobby Madden has failed to do his job properly with regards to protecting players on the park, and then them have to get subsequently punished after that. That's simply not good enough. And the assistant lines, I mean, if the excuse is that your left hand or your arm is interfering with play, then the offside rule's even worse than even I thought it was. I'm not an advocate of VAR by any stretch of the imagination. It ruins the game for me down south. But when the standard of refereeing up here is so bad, and we're not going to go down the David Ick theories of it, but it's just awful. It is. I think we can all agree, regardless of why it's happening, it is absolutely awful. I mean, that referee, that assistant linesman, how he can pick that as offside, because I thought the rule was that you do have to sort of favour the attacking player, and there is no way that he could with confidence say that Taylor's offside, as far as I'm concerned. But for me, the Andy Halliday one, if Callum McGregor isn't going full pelt, Callum McGregor's out for the season. It was an assault. There's no other way to describe it, and for me, it was the actions of a supporter of another club, shall we say, playing football for a different club, and
it's not a secret.
Trying to curry flavour with his season ticket friends elsewhere. I thought it was. I was absolutely fuming when I seen it, and the fact that it happened right in front of Bobby Madden, and Callum McGregor's not the type of character to react a lot of the time. You've seen how even he reacted. He was absolutely furious. But like I say, hell will freeze over before Scotland has got competent referees, I believe. But yeah, it's bad refereeing decisions cost you games. They change the course of seasons. Like I say, it wasn't the only reason why we dropped points on Saturday, but it certainly played a big part.
Well, I mean, obviously it did. You take the Halliday incident and they're down to 10 men.
For about the best part of 40 minutes as well.
Aye, did they withstand the pressure? You get that goal, and then you're up 2-1.
Aye.
And then what happens? You force them out and make more mistakes to try and pull something level? I mean, like you said, it changes the course of games, and ultimately we can't say we should have done enough. I mean, we're not going to sit and make excuses. We should have had enough in the tank and should have done enough to put that game away regardless. But you're right, and I mean, like I say, we know Halliday is. I'm not going to say the words, but we know. You know what I'm talking about. We know. Yeah. And I mean, the same could be said for Madden. I mean, it's no secret. He is a certain persuasion as well. He's a loyal member of another group, and the fact that the SFA can continue to let referees like this, who have well-known allegiances to other clubs. And by the way, I'm not just saying it's allegiances to them at the other side of the city. I'm talking about any club in Scotland. If you've got an allegiance to any club, you should not be refereeing a top-flight game for a rival or the club that you...
I don't think you can go down that route, though.
Listen, you have to, though, because you, at any point, right, and like I say, the standard of refereeing in Scotland is absolutely ridiculous. They're shocking. But there's an easy way around about it. See, if you want them to referee, send them out to Scotland. Let them go and referee games elsewhere, or put them to the level they actually suit and let them do Junior League, because the only way to get around it and to stop all the bias, and you can argue my point. I mean, you're welcome to say it, Franny, but something needs to be done about it, because you can only shout coincidence so many times. And as far as I'm concerned, the only way to fix it is to bring European refs in for countries where there's absolutely no bias, or even bring in VAR, which we don't want to see either, because it's a disgrace. But just touching on the flashpoints and the obviously the potential changes, Francis, have you anything to say about them? The offside and the Hardy incident?
The offside's offside, and the Andy Halliday one's a red card. It's as simple as that. Bobby Madden's meters, it's like about 3 meters away for the Andy Halliday one. I don't know. I can't make any excuses for the linesman either to say obviously Taylor's on the opposite end of the park from, but how he can see through all the bodies to see that Taylor's, well, not offside, but and suggest that he's offside, I don't know. How we can see Taylor but can't see the Hearts guy behind him. That one's baffling for me. But I think you're going down a slippery slope if you're wanting referees to sort of say what team they support and say, oh, well, you can't manage it. I mean, by all accounts, I'm in agreement. The refereeing standard in Scotland is shocking, but if this is the best that Scotland's got to offer, then you'd want them to then say, I support this team, I support that team, and they can't referee against them. Then who are we getting? We're getting worse referees then.
That's what I'm saying. You need to bring in guys for Europe.
But then can you afford guys for Europe? Like, I don't know. Is Scottish referees professional? We've got a lot of professional referees, so you can't just say bring guys in for you. It costs money.
That's
to
what
get
I'm saying.
guys.
Send them back to the junior leagues with the standard.
But then it costs money. We're not blessed with money. You can't just keep bringing it. I get where
you got to admit it.
You're questioning a referee's integrity by saying,
absolutely.
I'm a wee bit old school and kind of trust that. I agree that the refereeing standard is poor, but I don't believe they subconsciously make decisions on the team they support. Because if also going out that if say say just any referees a Celtic support, like it just you can't just say, well, you can't referee a Celtic game, because another game could dictate how Celtic season comes out. You can't go down that road. You simply can't go down that road.
Just to come back at you at that, right? See, across any other workplace within the UK, there's very stringent regulations in place, and conflict of interest is something that is frowned upon, right? Now, like I said, there's referees that referee at top flight games in this country whose allegiances are well known.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that they are going into every game with the intention of swinging things in favour or otherwise against anybody else, but it's still a conflict of interest. And the fact that there's
that's then
the fact that
that's
it's
question
that
your question every referee in professional football then.
Well, to an extent.
No.
Like I say,
if you want referees declare the football team they support and no referee a game against that, it's for me that's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. I don't want VAR coming into it, but because VAR, as we agree, ruined the English game, and I think the refereeing standard down there was brilliant. I think their percentage of correct decisions was about 97% So to bring in VAR for a couple percent is ridiculous for me, but we all know that's money driven. So maybe there's £30 million riding on this season, so there maybe is a case for it, but I would like VAR to stay as far away from him as possible, if I'm honest with you. But I can't see where your argument stands up with teams, with folks saying what team they support and refereeing on that basis.
Listen, just to reiterate, Franny, because I think you've picked up what I've said, Ryan, I am not in any way, shape or form saying that these guys who have allegiances to other teams are using the allegiances and that they're making decisions and they're doing things against certain clubs or in favour of other clubs in order to swing a result, because the fact that if that was even remotely a thing that they would be doing, then we'd all be like, I'm not saying that, right? I get what you're saying, but there is a conflict of interest, and it needs that particular thing. For me, you can't just let that slide, because whether you like it or no, that we, unlike other countries in Britain, and this is the last I'm going to say on it because I don't want to dwell on it, but unlike other countries in Britain, Scotland is a goldfish bowl, as we all know. There's two big clubs, that hate each other. The fans are bitter. They hate each other. Majority, no everybody. I'm not telling everybody with the same brush. But that's the sort of general consensus, right? Same in the Edinburgh side. 2 clubs that hate each other. And by all accounts, there's other teams and they all hate the big clubs and etc. etc. It's a completely different situation up here than it is in the likes of England and maybe other countries everywhere else. We're such a small country. It's such a confined area. And there's an awful lot of scrutiny. And this is why I'm saying if there's any doubt that there's a conflict of interest, and that shouldn't be allowed to let slide. So certain guys who have got known allegiances to teams shouldn't be allowed to referee games for those teams. Let them do teams, other games or whatever. But they need to bring in, as far as I'm concerned, they need to start bringing in referees for elsewhere, even England, Wales, whatever the case may be. But just we can't allow it to continue, as far as I'm concerned. No, as I say, I know I dwell on it too much because it's went on. I simply made a proposition that it's went on for far too long. So I apologise for that. But moving on, the Hearts game also saw a debut of 2 new Celts, Starfelt and Kyogo. Obviously, Kyogo didn't get very long. We'll touch on his sort of appearance in a minute. But let's just go back to Starfelt. He's come in on the Thursday. He's had, by all accounts, he's had Friday to train, meet the guys, and he's been flung in to start in his first ever game for Celtic in an opening league fixture. His performances for me wasn't a great debut. There were certainly mistakes made, but he also showed signs that he's a capable defender, and he does have this awareness, and I think that'll come. He also had a great. I think one of the things that we've missed as well was one of the defenders getting up for a ball. There was sort of latter end of the game, a corner that we had.
It was one of Craig Gordon's saves.
One of Craig Gordon's saves. So he's obviously keen to get up. He can head of the ball and everything else. So I think that'll come. I think confidence will come as well. I think he was unfortunate to be thrust into the deep end, and he's had that dreaded sort of debut legs, and he's made a few mistakes, which we've seen again. Henrik Larsson, we all know what happened in his debut and what the result was off the back of that, but then he turned out to be absolutely world class. So just coming to yourself, Anthony, Starfelt, what was your thoughts on his performance overall, and do you think there is a defender in there? Is there any cause for concern with the mistakes he was making?
Oh no, I think there's definitely a defender in there. Absolutely. I think, like you say, Johnny, he's arrived, quite late on after his quarantine and etc. Flung in at the deep end, as it were, in one of the most hostile. Although it was a reduced crowd, Tynecastle, we've all been there for away games. It's one of the most sort of volatile grounds. The fans are right on you. He's playing with a completely, 3 new guys, and like I said earlier, one of which isn't a centre half. His defensive partner on the night, Beaton, is not a centre half. And like you say, he didn't have a great start. He got kind of turned and kind of quite easily sort of brushed aside almost for the goal. But I think after that, as we settled into the game, I think he sort of settled in with it. I think it's hard for defenders when they're making their debuts, especially away from home, and if they have a sort of bad start. Funnily enough, we're talking about, at the start when we're discussing poor starts to the season that we've had, we've obviously discussed that this has been the first one since '97 when we played Hibs. But the season before that was, I can't remember if we lost or we drew up at Pittodrie, and it was Alan Stubbs' debut, and at the time, £5 million centre half coming up from Everton, and he got sent off on his debut, and we were starting to think, oh, what the hell have we got here? And I think over the years, Stubbsy more than paid that money back. He was a great servant for the club.
Absolutely.
So I think it was one of those days, and like I said, I don't actually think he necessarily had a bad game after it. It was just a bad moment, and it's just our luck at the minute that any mistake we make seems to lead to the conceding of a goal. As for little Kyogo, unfortunately there wasn't any sort of Scott Sinclair-esque miracle like there was a few years ago. But again, he came on, he did get brushed off the ball a couple of times, I felt, but he huffed and he puffed, and I think as he sort of creates more of an understanding with his teammates, then that'll all come good as well. He's got the physique, that kind of little. He looks like he'll be able to drop the shoulder and sort of excite the crowd, especially at home. Maybe similar in the way as Naka did for all those years. So yeah, not the kind of debut that they would have wanted, I'm sure, but I'm pretty confident things will turn around for them both.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about yourself, Francis? What did you make of the debuts?
Just something I feel like Starfield. Like I'm reluctant to say failed to impress because, like these guys have touched on, he was literally just out of the hotel of quarantine and on the pitch. Really, it was quite quick through. So I'm hoping that sort of a quick turnaround is the explanation for his not so great start. I feel like because, like we've touched on, he obviously was brushed aside, lost to 50-50, if you like, quite easy. I felt he misjudged the flight of the ball a couple of times. Just looked eager. I think you explained it well, John. It was just the debut kind of nerve sort of thing. I felt like that's what he was playing like. He was just trying too hard, if that makes sense. And it was just things weren't going his way. But I thought, obviously, like on the ball, he looked really good. He looks like he's not rapid, but he's far from slow. So like you guys, I'm not too concerned going forward. I'm going to give him and Furuhashi the benefit of the doubt of just the time they've had. I think you can't ignore the time they've had to actually integrate
Kyogo
in the
didn't
team.
have any time, did
No,
he?
I think he was.
He literally stepped off the plane.
I think he was off the first train. I think he was the first trainer playing up for London, wasn't he, to get here? So you can't ignore the little time that they've had with the team, and like you say, Kyogi's was none really. So yeah, it was. I'm going to cut them some slack and just hope that it was just simply the lack of time is why they maybe struggled. Like I think Furuhashi will take a wee bit longer because it's just, without sounding patronising, it's where he's came from. That league's maybe not as physical as our league. I kind of hate using that term because it's
you're right.
It's like we're actually just saying Scotland's all about sort of a kick and rush and all that, and just but people will see his physique and try and kick him and see if they can sort of bull him out a game and see if he's really up for the fight. So he'll need to get used to that. But he looked like he had got some nice touches, and like Anthony said, he's got that sort of a low centre of gravity where you think he'll be able to just drop the shoulder. He's got the pace to get away. But yeah, it's hard to judge him just with. I think in the coming week, well, more so Starfield in the next coming weeks, we'll see what he's obviously about. I think Kyle will take a wee bit longer, just simply because of where he's came from. Maybe not, but I'll just see. But I'll allow him a wee bit longer to try and get into the swing of things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with what you both says about Kyogo as well. Like, he only got 15 or so minutes, if that.
Yeah, that's
and like you says, he was literally just stepped off the plane right onto the park. So it's hard to. He's not even had a chance to really meet his team or integrate with the guys. So it's difficult to sort of gauge, and you can't hold that against him.
Again, I don't know how good the guy's English is on that as well. We don't know if he even speaks a bit of English. So.
Well, he done a press conference today, and he never spoke a word of English. So
there you go. That will not be easy for him either.
But again, these are all things that any new guy coming in for a foreign country have to overcome. And not just learning English, learning Scots dialect as well, Glaswegian, as well as everything else. So, these things will take time. I'm firmly aware of that, and I'm pretty sure most people are as well. Well, some are. I've seen some actually horrific comments for some folk on other platforms regarding the debuts. But I mean, those that know their football, those that don't, and that's evident. But for Starfelt, obviously, do you think do you think we still need to bring in another centre half, or do you think he can develop a partnership with Welsh until Julian's back?
I believe it could. I would like to see us bring one in, maybe even just a loan, because obviously here is a Kuru or something, other Japanese boys maybe getting talked of. So I would like maybe just a loan to come in, because I think going forward it's going to be Starfelt and Julian, but we obviously think the latest we've heard is September time for Julian, but we just don't know how he's going to come back. So a loan deal might not be the worst, just so you don't sort of stint sort of Welsh's development and guys like Murray as well. So I still think we need one in there. I still think just a more experienced guy than Welsh, although Welsh has never really let us down.
Yeah, that's why I was mentioning it. Do you think Welsh is maybe the guy to partner with him, or do you think we really need somebody in? Because Welsh, by all accounts, has been relatively solid. I don't think, as we touched on in previous episodes, I don't think he's the guy to be the leading man in the centre defence. But at this point, would you say centre defence is a priority? Anthony, what's your stance on it?
Like Francis, I think obviously Julian and Starfelt are going to be the two going forward, and Welsh is there. If there's an opportunity to get someone else in, then absolutely, you'd have to sort of take that offer seriously. But in terms of absolute priority, there are other areas. I would say one position behind them, the goalkeeper, it's not even a priority. It's an urgency. It's an emergency. It is you know. I can't. There's no other words. I'm trying to think of words to sum up how badly we need a different goalkeeper between the sticks. Right back for me is also an absolute priority in this window, if we can. And then obviously going forward up front as well. You know, what's the Brighton sort of interest in Edward seems to have went pretty quiet. So we don't know how that's going to unfold. But obviously, I think whether or not Edward stays or goes in this window, I think you do need more options up front as well. Yeah. So yeah, those would be my priorities. But if there's a chance, I think Francis is absolutely spot on. A loan deal would probably be the best sort of avenue to explore for that if they were going to be bringing in somebody else at the back.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the other things that a lot of guys that has been circulating today a lot, actually, and it's a comment I think we've made here as well. And a lot of other fans are sort of a similar mindset, and that is a sort of midfield general, a guy with a bit of dig. Because I think what we've seen, I don't think Calmac for all his the captain going forward, he's not the guy with that dig. We've said that we think Shaw might be able to fill in, come in and fill that void, but he's not really had a chance. Turnbull has looked kind of so for me. I believe that he's we've seen how good he is. We know how good he is. We've seen how talented a player he was last year when he was one of the only shining sort of bright lights in an otherwise absolute blackout. But this year, so far, what I've seen him, and it might just be the style, the thing, but he's not found his legs yet, and he seems to be struggling. But one of the names that we're getting linked with, again, as we do just about every single transfer window, is James McCarthy.
I think let's say Paddy Roberts. Joking.
Listen, I would take him.
I was only joking.
But McCarthy's names came up again. Obviously, we're linked with him every year, and we know that that's no one of Angie's guys. So make of that what you will. But if it's somebody that he's aware of, he's had a look at, he knows about McCarthy, then do you reckon it's a possibility? Would you like to see him coming in? Do you think he's the guy to sort of to sort of put his stamp on that midfield, Franny?
I'm not sure. Because I'm a bit like, excuse my friends, but we just need a bastard in there, in the middle of the park. We just need somebody that's not put a wee boy, like you say, a boy with a bit about him in that. Like, I hate to it, but Ryan Jack would be the perfect player for us right now because he's great in the tackle, solid in the tackle, and he just does a simple.
Jesus. That name you came up with, Franny.
I would take him. I think he's a brilliant. I think he does his job perfect. It's the type of player we're missing. Soro just doesn't seem to be that guy. He's too eager. But I don't like James McCarthy. What would worry about me with James McCarthy is I believe he's been a free agent for a season. So why is that? Or is it just I could be wrong with that, but I don't know if it's just this summer or was it last summer his contract ran out. So
my understanding is it's just ran out.
Right. Well,
but I might be wrong.
Sure. It's a wee bit different. Might be a wee bit different, but it's just one of the names that just never seem to go away. That are always linked with him. I mean, Brendan Rodgers, by accounts, tried to get him in. I don't know what happened there, why it never happened. But I've read stories that he was willing to come, but for some reason it never happened. So I don't know why. But I don't think he's a player I would take, just more experience. But I wouldn't prioritise bringing him in, if that makes it. I don't think I don't think he is a tall laddie and stuff, but I don't think he's that guy that's got that dig. But I mean, he would definitely bring experience. He maybe could just be that sitter guy because he does play the central sort of a defensive midfield role. So I wouldn't be adverse to it, but just kind of going back and something like Tony said, I would be prioritising other positions before I go and try and waste probably a good part of the wages on a James McCarthy.
Yeah, and what about yourself, Anthony? Where do you stand on McCarthy?
Well, I don't know what's more frequent. The James McCarthy rumours. I think it's just this generation's Craig Bellamy, isn't it? Every year we were getting Bellamy back on loan, or Robbie Keane. That was the one kind of subsequently after that. Franny's made some, perfect points about, other areas perhaps needing strengthening first, and I do agree. I don't think he is that kind of, that sort of snarler in the middle of the park that we need. The one thing you could say against that, I suppose, is this time last year we said that all we needed, the missing piece, was an absolute bastard at the back as well. And we went out and got Shane Duffy, the Republic of Ireland captain, and that was meant to, he was meant to be that bit of the jigsaw, and it didn't quite work out. So maybe Ange Postecoglou is looking at, just a different style of playing. But the way, I would probably argue that the way that we all look at the game, we're all probably quite in agreement that it is the type of player we need in the middle. Whether McCarthy proves to be that type of player, I would remain to be convinced. But I certainly, put it this way, I think he would definitely be enthusiastic if he came up here, because as we all know, if you cut him, he'd bleed green. He's absolutely Celtic through and through. I'm not necessarily saying that Celtic minded is the way forward. In fact, in a lot of occasions, it can prove to have the opposite effect. But maybe just having someone there that, perfect example, very recent one. But it could go either way. But yeah, I think if we can pull it off, great. It would be a bit of a coup, as it were. He's got massive amounts of experience in the English Premier League. But time will tell.
Yeah, I myself, I firmly agree with both you guys. I think that he could be the guy, but again, it's a name I've been linked with for every year for as long as I can even remember. I'm like, how many years you need to go back before he was linked? Is the bigger question. But again, it's probably just mere transfer talk. But we obviously want to touch on it and see where the thoughts are, because again, there is a particular void there that has been left since Scott Brown's moved, and we don't have that in the centre of the park anymore. So I think that any time you're linked to a guy who could potentially come in and take that mantle up is something worth talking about. One of there's only a couple of other things we really need to discuss. I want to touch quickly on, Anthony, I'll come to you first here. Ange, by all accounts, and his post-match press conferences, has been a breath of fresh air. He's not letting the Scottish media get under his skin, despite the fact that they're repeating questions at him. He's coming right back at them. He's just telling them exactly how it is. He's not taking any of the shite. And he's also been brutally honest with the Celtic fans, and that he knows where his sort of where the buck sort of stops with him, and he's holding the board to account as well. He's letting the fans know, look, I'm telling them. What this most recent game, obviously, his opening league game, and it's a loss. His post-match, he didn't look particularly pleased, but I mean, why would he? But what's your thoughts on the comments they made again, and obviously the way he's handling the Scottish media at the minute, because they do, and they are trying. It seems already get under his skin.
Well, I think when his name was first linked with the job, and it became we realised quite quickly that there had been, whether or not there had been any sort of personal relationship, but that there had been, that Dominic Mackay was aware of him from his time in Japan. I think what we all feared at the time that he was going to be a bit of another yes man for this new administration coming in, and he wouldn't rock the boat, he wouldn't speak out of line. I think on that front, all our fears have been, that have been put to bed quite quickly. We've seen from day one that he's not going to toe the line just to cover somebody else's back. I don't want to do the sort of the stereotype, but the Aussies, or I know he's Greek, but he's obviously got a big Australian background, but they're not known for their diplomacy. They're straight talking. A spade is a spade with them. A spade's not a sharp implemented piece of garden equipment. A spade's a spade. And I've definitely enjoyed that, and I liked what his response on Saturday night when he got asked the same question about frustration 4 times or 5 times, and
brilliant.
When the reporter says, "Oh, you're sort of using the same answers," all it says, "Well, you're asking me the same question." I like that. That's the way I would deal with the media, because, as we all know, the lion's share of them do not want them to succeed. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Oh, steady on, John.
I know we're talking about the media here. We know John's
but you know what I mean. But what I did like about him as well was the fact that, obviously, when the reporter, in his defence, did try and cut him some slack about the fact that, you're still new and you're needing, maybe time for the players to gel in and stuff, his response to that was, he says, we don't have time for time. He says, we need to start winning games. It's as simple as that. So I think he's a smart enough character to know that, as supporters, we'll back him, and we appreciate the circumstances that he's brought in, but he also knows that football's a results-driven business. Like he said on the Friday presser, he's not for outer space. He knows how the game works. He's coached at the highest level. I just hope in the next couple, I hope that there's maybe just a steadying of the ship in the next couple of weeks, and we can start putting a few results together, and that can build the confidence, take some of the heat off of him, and if we can get some reinforcements in, we can sort of take it from there. We can take stock sort of once the window's shut, but we can ill afford to lose any more ground, even at this early point in the season.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right, and I would perfectly. I think we'd all agree with that. I mean, like I said, he comes across as very composed, and he knows what he wants to say. He's not taking any of the shite from the media, like you mentioned there, that he's perfect. That the retort was perfect. His response is like, you keep saying the same things to. You keep asking the same questions, like what you want him to say, and you're right. It's very black and white. There's no sort of roundaboutery. There's no, like you mentioned, your analogy. The spade is a spade, and no a sharp gardening implement was perfect. But like you say, he also is holding. He's no beating around the bush when it comes to the board and the whole issue with the signings and getting guys in. But he's also taking responsibility, which I think is paramount as well. And he seems firmly like he desperately wants to get Celtic into sort of winning ways, and I'm firmly as soon as that starts to happen, that'll breed confidence. The guys they still need time to gel. We're still in a transitional period, but I think that we said on the last episode as well. Once that happens, once this clicks, and we've got the guys in place, we're a little bit settled at the back. We're playing football the way he wants it to be played. I don't think these teams are going to be able to cope. We've seen it there. It's still very early doors, but we still had 70% of possession for a majority of that game. It was just sort of breaking down 11 men behind the ball, and that's going to be the story this season. It's how well we do that going forward. But I think we're actually going to take scores, goals after these teams going forward. Franny, just quickly comment yourself about the whole Ange thing and his sort of recent post-game pressers and the one after the Hearts game as well, where he looked a bit disjointed, but. Again, he was honest. What's your thoughts?
It's just, once again, keep getting impressed with the guy and stuff. Like he obviously gave a couple of wee cliche statements at the weekend, but he's still not willing to dig out players. He didn't, which I thought was quite good. He never picked up on the referees, because to go back to Gerrard's first game, he was saying the referees had been against Rangers for years, and it was like, it's your first game, mate. How do you know this? So it was like he had a perfect opportunity to dig out referees, because we had two arguably free decisions, because the free kick what led to the goal, I don't actually think was a free kick, but so he had perfect ammo to have a go at the officiating. But I believe he's smart enough. Obviously, he's not wanting to use that as excuse. He's not wanting that stick to be beaten with, saying, "Oh, I was blaming the officials," because we all know the media would have probably jumped in it. And I think, like, I actually made a wee note of that comment that Anthony mentioned as well. But I think, like any big club, the media do want a manager to give them the wee lines. They want them to fail, if you like. Like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the media are dead. Like, I'm not a big Man United fan, but the media, and myself included, are a wee bit like, they didn't want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to fail because they feel he's been given an opportunity he doesn't deserve. And I think some of the media in Scotland are like that with Postecoglou. They don't feel he deserves it. A lot of that will be down to ignorance and stuff. And I think he's picked up on that. And I think they're getting annoyed that he is quite witty and it's quite dry. He's quite quick with his answers. And I think they're picking up on that. And I think that is even more desperate for them to fail. And like, I think it goes back to his first comment where, I don't know who the reporter was, but we mentioned about his experience and things like that. And he obviously said, well, that's your opinion and whatnot. I mean, I've managed at World Cups, etc. So I think the media have, I don't want to sound like I think some media outlets are already are a wee bit annoyed with him and a wee bit up with him at the fact that he seems to have their number.
No, I mean, I absolutely, and it's evident, and it's not going to end. But as long as he keeps just doing what he's doing, then I'm pretty sure he'll keep them in check, and we won't need to be dealing with the same shite we've dealt with previous managers who have actually buckled to them and have caved when under question and stuff like that, or have gave them ammo and gave them headlines. But moving on, and this is the last thing we need to sort of discuss tonight, boys. So, is obviously we've got a game, Europa League qualifier against, I don't even know how, Jablonec. Jablonec. I'll just sound it out. Jablonec. So, I mean, we've got that tie coming up on Thursday. For those that aren't already aware, we record our episodes on a Monday night and a Thursday night, and they go out the following day at lunchtime. So Tuesday lunchtime, Friday lunchtime. So this will be one of the first times we'll actually be able to cover a game immediately after it's finished. Granted, it won't be heard until the following day at lunchtime, but at least the sort of reaction to it will be fresh. Now, I know nothing about this team. This is the first time I've even heard their name. And again, it's a European tie. If we get through this, we've got a playoff tie against Alkmaar, which is a far tougher test. Alkmaar have got European pedigree themselves. They're certainly no slouches. So I mean, it's going to be tough. We need to start kicking things into gear. But look, just focusing on the game coming up on Thursday. Anthony, we'll start with you. And this is just based solely on what you've seen against Midtjylland and against Hearts. We know going into these games against unknowns can be dangerous, and you're liable, or not liable, but you can underestimate teams like this at this stage, as we've seen Rodgers do with Red Imps and stuff like that. What do you think? Where do you think we stand going into Thursday? Do you think it's a team and a game that we should be winning comfortably, or do you think we need to be wary?
Like yourself, John, I swear to just make these teams up now in these early rounds. I mean, you just look at some of these team names and you're going, nah, you're having me on here. Like, but yeah, don't get me wrong. I think it was individual errors in both Midtjylland games, to be honest, that cost us. And again against Hearts on Saturday. It's never great. I'm not a fan of the home leg being the second leg, because as we've seen year after year with Celtic in Europe, a tie can get away for you pretty quickly. And we don't even have the Brucey bonus that if we do get up the park and score, that we've got the bonus away goal or anything now. That could be one of the ties where the scrapping of the rule actually works against you. Listen, it's one of those ones though that still you still have to say on paper we should be winning a Europa League qualification tie. But time will tell. It's one of those, it's an awkward time in the afternoon, isn't it? I think I'll still be at work when the game's on. But we just hope nothing daft, and then we can take care of business the following week at Celtic Park. And just like you say, Alkmaar will be a completely different tie. But I would like to think by then as well that we would be a little bit further down in terms of our own development. We have a few more reinforcements as well.
Maybe they're right back.
Oh, here's hoping.
Oh no, it's that. I've got the teams mixed up there.
I just hope that we failure to qualify for the Europa League would be pretty catastrophic. Not even just financially, but just in terms of reputation.
Well, I think if we get past this Jablonec team, we go to the conference.
Then I want in that, mate.
If
they're making a competition up just for. If you think the teams in this league, the Europa League, are made up, mate, to get to that one.
It's still European confidence. I'm trying to be positive, Franny. But no, you're absolutely right, Donny. But so just coming in, the lineup. Who do you predict is going to start?
Oh, so I don't know that Google search on Jablonec for nothing.
I'm coming.
I'm only joking, mate. All I've got is they finished 9th and came 3rd the previous year. That's as much as I know about them. So we can move on. We can move on.
Well, we'll get to it because I want your predicted lineup. So
I've got to do my lineup, but
Anthony, do you want to start off? Where do you think how do you think we're lining up against Jablonec?
I think Bain is, unless some drastically, I think even the deadline's passed, isn't it? So it's going to be one of the two. And the fact that he dropped Barkas for the return leg against Michelin and Bain started on Saturday suggests that it'll be Bain in goals, so we can, just get the rosary beads out, boys. The back four, I would imagine, would be Taylor, and centre half would be Starfelt, and I think he'll bring Welsh back in. To be honest, Ralston's are only available right back, so I think that back four's pretty much set in stone. I think he'll bring Christie back in, to be honest. So I think you'll have Christie and Forrest this time, and then McGregor and Turnbull and Sorrow, and then Edward up front. He may well introduce Kyogo, but I can't see it for the first leg anyway. I think maybe that'll happen in the second leg or against Dundee next week. But yeah, I think it'll be much of a muchness, and just fingers crossed we'll get a more positive result.
You want to fire? You got a predicted result? You want to use a?
Do you know what? I'm going to contradict myself. Even though those Scott Bain's in goals, I'm going to say 3-0 Celtic.
Clean sheet, yes, I like
A
it.
clean sheet. Let's try. We'll go try and do some positive energy.
That's what we need. Franny, what about yourself? You can talk about. Listen, I know you've already mentioned that you know nothing about Jablonec, but if you fancy repeating yourself,
we'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
So what's your lineup then?
I think it'll be there. I agree with a lot with what Tony's lineup is. The only difference I would have is reluctantly, I think he'll stick with Beaton at centre half. I think Saturday was telling. I know Beaton maybe didn't predict it, but I think the fact that he came back in has said something for me that I think he's got to go with Beaton the now worryingly. And I agree also that Christie will come in and Forrest move over to the right. So I'd have the exact same team as Anthony, or well, that's what I think will be the exact same team as Anthony. Only I think Welsh, Beaton will play instead of Welsh. I don't see Barkas coming in because he wasn't even on the bench in the last two games. So I think until I'm hoping we're going for another goalkeeper. I think I've just seen my stop coming. I think I've just jumped off the train there. But I think we must. I believe we must be going for another goalkeeper.
We have to be, man.
I think
so. Ben Foster's another one we've been linked with.
No, I would take him before Joe Hart, but that's for a different day. That conversation we're on the line. But I would go with the same lineup as Anthony. Apart from I would be swapping. I think he'll swap Welsh for Beaton, and I'll say a 2-0 Celtic.
2-0 Celtic. Another clean sheet. I love it.
That's so it's about this team.
For myself, it's hard to sort of predict anything. I mean, we're playing the way we are, and you don't know the teams we're playing against. For me, a lineup would be pretty much the exact same as yours, Anthony. But although it wouldn't surprise me if he starts Kyogo, because he'll have another few days to train. And like if he offers that threat, then definitely I think at least he'll be coming off the bench. So I think that it's pretty much going to be the exact same. And I'll say 3-0 as well.
Good lad.
Aye. So we can only hope.
Here's hoping.
Because I can't get a clean sheet do the world of good.
I know. Still win.
Aye. So anything else you want to add?
Yeah.
No, I just glad, just really enjoyed being back on, mate. And yeah, here's hoping for a good result on Thursday.
Definitely. What about yourself, Franny?
It's good to have Anthony back. Folk can maybe get more views off because folk will not be sick listening to me now.
You're the main man, Franco.
And then obviously, we've got another, as I said, we've got the game coming up Thursday. We'll record Thursday's episode to go out on Friday. Stephen, hopefully be back by then. Fingers crossed, Stephen, if you're listening. Hope everything's all right, mate. But I think that's it to wrap it up, boys. Thanks again, Anthony, Franny, for joining us, giving your thoughts. I know, again, one of these days it's going to be off the back of a win, and
we'll get there.
We will. It's happening. It's definitely happening. I know it's happening. Hopefully sooner rather than later, though. So let's start with Thursday. And we'll be back. Well, this episode, if you're listening, will be live on the Tuesday at lunchtime. So we're back Friday for everybody listening at lunchtime. And again, as we keep touching on, we're moving towards, for YouTube anyway, going live. Not live, but like video, so you'll actually be able to put faces to the names. So that's something we're excited about, and that'll be happening very soon. As well as a whole new graphic overhaul for the new season. So you may notice some changes in that respect as well. But thanks to everybody for tuning in. As always, if you're listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the wee bell so you get notified every time an episode goes live. Chat to us in the comments. We love sort of chatting to you. If you've got any feedback, you want to comment on the stuff we've talked about today as well, get involved in that conversation, then fire in. You can catch us on all the socials as well. So make sure you give us a follow. But again, boys, lastly, thank you again, Dunny, Franny, for joining me. And until next time.
Pleasure.
Yep, pleasure, mate.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Until next time, stay safe. And I've done it again. Stay well.
I got a medical tomorrow.
Has he? Is this?
I saw the Daily Mail reporting that. Take that.
Right. I'd say you heard it here first, but it'll be tomorrow before you hear it. Just remember that you did call this at 9:43 on Monday night. Breaking news, guys. No, but thank you again. And I'm going to try this, Stephen. Gives a break as well. I'm going to try it. Until next time, stay well, keep safe. Hail, hail.